Intercultural literacy is one of the essential abilities in Cornell's core curriculum. In this video, we'll get a quick overview of what intercultural literacy means here at Cornell. First, let's break down the term, intercultural literacy. Inter means across. Cultural refers to the knowledge, behavior, and attitudes common to a particular group of people. We have another video all about culture for more details on that. And literacy in this context, we know literacy as the ability to read and to write. In this context, we're taking a more figurative view, and it means the ability to read and navigate a particular topic or competency or fluency in a particular area. So intercultural literacy is really about competency in understanding and communicating with people across cultural barriers. Depending on your life experiences up until now, this may be a very new idea, it might be something that you know about but you haven't practiced a whole lot, or it might be something that you've been practicing for your entire life. Either way, our aim here is to introduce some of the ways that we at Cornell think and talk about intercultural literacy. Many of the values and concepts included in intercultural liberty overlap with values and ideas found across Cornell's curriculum and culture. These are just a few of the documents where you'll find related language. You may be talking about some of these documents in class, such as the Freedom of Expression and Civil Discourse Statement, the Educational Priorities and Outcomes. You'll see those quoted at the top of, not all of them, but some of them quoted at the top of every syllabus that you ever get here. So these are important statements of Cornell's values. So pulling from all of these existing documents, as well as a wide range of scholarship about intercultural literacy, which, by the way, you'll find very similar and related concepts go by a bunch of different terms like multicultural literacy or competency, cross-cultural literacy or competence or competency, also global communication, some places call it that, or global competency. But this is the definition that we have that we're working with at Cornell. The knowledge, skills, and dispositions needed to appropriately and effectively include, communicate with, cooperate with, and collaborate with diverse individuals in a variety of settings. It includes the ability to connect with diverse ideas and with people whose experiences differ from our own and that may be separated from us by time, space, or culture. Okay, that's a lot of words, so let's break it down some more. First, let's talk about knowledge. So actually going back, knowledge, skills, and dispositions. We'll talk about what each of those things means. So knowledge, we're going to actually break into two pieces, intercultural meta-knowledge and then culturally specific knowledge. So intercultural meta-knowledge, this is knowledge about culture and about the ideas important to intercultural relationships and communication. So what does culture mean in this context, and how does culture shape individual identities and experiences? There's more about that, as I said in the other video. How culture interacts and intersects with difference, discrimination, and inequality, and lots of different pieces. So culture is an important part of what makes people people and what makes individuals who and how they are, but there are also other factors that intersect and affect culture. And finally, what approaches and skills can help facilitate communication across differences of culture, experience, and even language. So having in your pocket some techniques for what to do when you are trying to communicate with somebody across some of these different kinds of barriers and divides and differences. You're not going to have all of them, but knowing some of them. So culturally specific knowledge, this really helps in terms of when you are trying to communicate with someone from a particular culture that isn't your own, having knowledge about that culture can be really important. So some of the pieces, and also knowing about our own culture so that you know sort of where are potential differences that might exist. So things like language, both verbal, and this can be, the difference between English and French, but it can also be the difference between American English and British English, or even within the United States, the difference between how a New Yorker talks and how somebody from Texas talks, that kind of thing. So also nonverbal communication. So there are a lot of culturally specific gestures and expressions that might mean one thing in one language or in one cultural context and something different in another one. Also, unstated rules of behavior. This is really important. One that is coming up that we might be seeing a lot of right now is how far apart do people stand when they're talking to each other, for example. This is culturally dependent. And in the US, we're pretty far apart talkers. We don't come like right close to each other. Some of you may have seen or your parents might know the Seinfeld close talker episode, where if somebody gets up like right in your face, it's very uncomfortable. But this is something that can change over time. And right now we're having this sort of social experiment with this topic because of social distancing. And so you'll see that 6 feet is further apart than most Americans are comfortable with. And you might find yourself, even though you know you're supposed to be 6 feet apart, drifting closer together to somebody as you're having a conversation. You also, if you're observing other people having conversations, sometimes there's a difference where one person is very conscious of the 6 foot distancing and the person they're talking to isn't. And there will be this sort of dance where one person takes a step forward because they want to close that distance that feels like too much, and the other person who's aware of that will take a step back. This is actually something that you observe in cross-cultural communication, where you've got two individuals who are coming from, one from a closer talking culture and one from a further away talking culture. They'll have this same sort of dance, but we can see it and experience it right now, just because this is a norm that's changing. So this kind of unstated rules for behavior is one of the pieces of knowledge that we usually inherently have about our own culture, but learning them about other cultures that we might need to interact with is one of the important pieces of intercultural literacy. Also, other culturally specific practices, norms, and assumptions, and cultural heritage. So things like what art is considered important, what music are people like to listen to, what are some of the cultural touchstones in terms of stories and things like that. So again, paying attention to what our own are and also what other people's are. All right, so moving on to skills. These are things that you can practice doing. These are behaviors that you can practice that help with intercultural literacy. So the ability to perceive and identify our own cultural context. People talk about culture as being like a fish doesn't see the water that they're swimming in. The same can often be true about our own culture. We just assume that this is normal and universal because it's what we've always encountered. So being able to see that and step outside of it. And going along with that, the ability to understand and entertain other perspectives. This is sometimes called empathy, not in the sort of woo-woo, I feel your pain sense, but more in the sense of being able to use your imagination and critical thinking skills to try to see something from somebody else's point of view, and to try to temporarily suspend our own perspectives. Again, back to interpreting nonverbal cues and applying all of that knowledge that we were just talking about in a new situation. So just knowing something theoretically isn't necessarily all you need. You also need to be able to think, oh, I remember learning this about this other culture, and that's probably affecting how we're interacting right now. Finally, dispositions. These are sometimes also called attitudes or state of mind that help to help integrate all of these pieces. Number one is curiosity, and you're going to hear that a lot here at Cornell because it's really sort of key to the entire academic endeavor. Curiosity about the world, and specifically in intercultural literacy, curiosity about other people and other cultures. Tolerance for some level of discomfort. This isn't easy. This is intercultural communication, interpersonal communication. These are some of the most fraught experiences that people can have. It can be scary to do something new. It can be difficult and uncomfortable to question assumptions that we've had all of our lives. So willingness to put up with some of that discomfort. So you might hear people talk about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's kind of an oxymoron, but that's kind of what we're getting at. not hiding from these kinds of experiences. Respect for differences between people, and a desire for equitable relationships and connections across differences. These are all important pieces of intercultural literacy. And I want to point out that for all of these pieces, these are included but not everything. There are other pieces of knowledge and other skills and other dispositions that are also useful and maybe important, but this is just what we can cover in a quick video. All right, so points for further discussion. This is a topic that is going to come up again and again as you go through Cornell, and I'm not trying to give you a complete workshop on the topic. So points for further discussion, things to think about going forward, and to look out for as you are continuing in the FYS and at Cornell and in your life. So I will just let you read those questions to yourself and discuss.